Okay, so welcome back. In the previous lecture, we set up our project and we got Playmaker installed. Now we can begin laying out what the very basic beginning user interface is going to look like for our pirate trading game. Now, I highly advise you to take a look at Taipian and the derivatives of Taipian, because there's been many copies of that game. It was originally released in 1982. And so we're going to use a lot of those attributes. We're not going to follow it exactly. In Taipian, there's a lot of questions. Do you want to see the money lender? Do you want to start with so many guns versus so many with cash? And there's a lot of those interactions, and we'll get into them later. But what we're going to do is we're going to get some core gameplay up and going, so you can start having fun building up your pirate game, rather than just spending the first couple hours of this game just making a bunch of questions and we're not really playing a game. So let's go ahead and start, because we want to start with what's fun, and let's start with money and cash, because cash is one of the attributes of the game. So let's lay out a field to hold our cash, and we can do that by just right clicking here and coming down under UI and choosing text, just like that. And if I do, right now you can't really see that it put anything there, so the best thing that you can do is double click on text over here on the left, and you'll see that in our scene view it selected it and brought us in close, and you can barely see that it says new text here. We can pick this up and move it around, and it just so happens that this bottom line right here that we're seeing is the bottom of our screen, so we can make our text more visible here. So let's go to Inspector, and you'll see that when I select Inspector that we have a text component, and we can change the text here. Using this property, we can change this and say cash, and then we'll put a colon, and we'll just show how we want it to look for now. And in fact, there are no decimal places really in the Taipian trading game, and in a lot of these trading games the cents don't really matter. We'll deal in dollars, so we'll just leave the cents off for now. And we do want it to not be black. It's really hard to see, so we can click down here on this color property and change it to maybe making it just white so it really stands out. And we can zoom out. So we've done this in other courses I've released. I like starting with this simple interface building, because you're going to have to do it anyway. And if you're a new user, then it's definitely useful to get practice laying these interfaces out. Now, basically there I was just scrolling in and out using the scroll bar, and I can drag it around here. So I'm just getting it centered. I shouldn't even say centered. I'm going to put it here to the left. So even just like that, we can run this, and I just come up here to the play and hit play, and we can see cash 0. Now it's kind of small. Let's make it a little bigger. Come here to font size and make it say 24, and now we'll see that it's a little bit bigger, easier to see. And I don't want to leave anything here just saying text, because if you leave it just saying text, it's going to get really hard to find things once there's a lot of items over here. So we want to change this to cash text. I usually like having the word that describes it and then the type of item it is, because we're going to have a lot of different things like panels and buttons and things. So this lets us know that we're dealing with cash, and this is the text for cash. Now we're also going to need some other things too to get started. We know we're going to need to also have a loan amount. We're going to have a bank amount, but let's keep it simple for now. Let's just do bank text, so we can have the bank, so we can see it. And when we do that, we're going to want to change this to say bank, and just edit this text. And because I duplicated this, it's right over the top of it, so I can just drag it down, click and hold to drag it down. So now we have a bank text and a cache text. We know for sure we're going to have like days or months that go by. And the simplest thing when we're first building this game out is we're just going to have the day. And we'll later, maybe in future lectures, or maybe even leave that to a challenge, make it so that it might have, it's January and February and March of a certain year and things like that. But for now, we can just have day 1, day 2, day 3. It'll give us a way to progress through the game, and later we can upgrade that component so that it will, show maybe a month and a year. So let's go ahead and duplicate our text again, and we're duplicating these so that we don't have to reset the size and the color attributes mainly right now. So let's go ahead here and say day text, and you can change it here or you can change it up here, and it's usually easier to change it up here because here it thinks you're clicking on stuff a little bit more than this does. So we'll call this the day text and drag it maybe over to this side. So we'll put the day over here. That day text, and we'll just say day number 1, and let's duplicate again, and we know we're going to have a location. So location is the city that we're in, and the way these trading games work is the prices of our items are going to be different in one city than in other cities, and so we can buy cheaper in one city, take those items and go to another city. So we're going to have to know what our current city is. So we'll say current city text, and we'll here say current city, and we'll just fill in Hong Kong as an example. And now we have not too much room, not enough room here, so let's drag that out. And this is why we might want to right align these. So we'll select them both. I held down the shift key as I clicked on them. You'll notice it also selected them over here the same way. So I could come over here and shift click them, and then I can come over to the alignment and say align them to the right. So that way, as the city name changes, it won't look too bad over here. So now that we've got like some of these basics, we know that we're gonna need more. We're gonna have the hold of the ship, and the we're also gonna have the loan. We're gonna have what is in each of the items, how much of each of the items we have. So there's a lot more we're going to have to do, but what we're intentionally doing in these first couple lectures is getting the very basic setup. And so let's go ahead and make a way to advance the day, and we'll work on that, and then we're going to have a way so that we can go to another city, and we'll change the cities here. And I always like also, this game, the money is going to have to probably come a little bit later, because buying items, we're going to put that off just a little bit. But first we're going to work on advancing the day and traveling and those kind of things. So let's add a button for those actions before we end this lecture. I'm just going to click back over here, come up under UI, and this time instead of choosing text, I'm going to come down here and choose button. So this will give us some actions to work on and actually set up a state machine in our next lecture to actually do something. And so let's go ahead and say, for this button, we're going to say travel button. Now we're obviously going to have in future lectures a lot more complexity. That's why we're starting at the beginning. And what we want to be able to do is travel to maybe 5 or 6 different cities, or 7. Well, we're going to have to build up in that a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out by just traveling from Hong Kong to Shanghai. And so we'll make a button, a travel button. So let's go ahead and change the text on this button. We have travel button is here, the name of the button, but you can't see anywhere over here to change the name of the button or the text on the button. The text is actually nested here under the object. So we click on this and you'll see that there's a text under here, and we can click on that. And let's just change this now to say travel. And we can right now, just in our very basic stage, just say to Shanghai, like that. And so this is going to set us with a button that when we click it, we'll change our current city from being at Hong Kong. We'll travel to Shanghai, and then our day is going to go up. And then we'll probably change this button back to saying travel back to Hong Kong, or we'll develop into a more complex interface. But for now, this is what we're going to basically just have one button. We'll advance our day. We'll go and travel to our next city. Now, there is one more thing I wanted to point out. Notice how I didn't bother changing text here. And that's because text is nested under this travel button. It's not going to be a problem because we know as soon as we see travel button and we click in here what this text is for. So while I name these texts, and actually I put that button accidentally inside of cache text, it thinks it's inside of here, so I need to move this button back out so it's not nested under travel text. But I'm just pointing out that it's okay to leave this one, in my opinion, text, because it's obvious what it's for and it's clean. But notice how I stayed here with the same naming conventions, and how here I have cache text as the name as well, bank text, day text, currency text. So we're keeping our naming conventions the same. And I'm going to end this lecture here, and in the next lecture we're going to set up our first finite state machine, and we're going to actually make it so that we can advance this day here, and hopefully even in the next lecture get it so we change our current city over here to say Shanghai.